Hi everyone! Welcome back to another episode of Starting Out, a podcast where we share our stories of starting out in this great big world. We talk about our highlights, trials and tribulations, and lessons we've learned along the way. So as you are starting your journey, we hope you can learn from us. So Cor, what's the topic for today?
So the topic that we have for today is how to make friends in university.
Initial thoughts. It is hard. It is easy. There's so much pressure. And we're going to go through all of it. And then almost like coming out of it now. Because now we get to step away from the mayhem and the craziness, right?
Yes.
We've seen so much in terms of how people make friends and how people interact with each other on campus. So we're going to talk in like a university setting. And then maybe we can give some advice if you're basically doing online schooling. How would you make friends?
And given that, just to preface, we did graduate about a year ago. So our first year was 4 or 5 years ago. So obviously pre-COVID, we still got the chance to be in person, like meet everyone on residence. But we know that now it's definitely not the case where it's just online schooling, which is why we're still going to talk a little bit about how to actually make friends in an online environment.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, where to begin? Oh my goodness. You know, like, okay, think about it. We are
As a child.
Yeah.
As a baby.
As a tiny little pea-sized itty-bitty in the big world. How do you make friends? I think the easiest part of making friends is actually being in school. You know, you got a good foundation because you're in school. Yeah. Everybody is trying to make a friend. It kind of works a little bit better in your favor because you're like, okay, everybody is in that boat right now.
Yeah, and I feel like because everyone's in school, like everyone almost has the same or very similar goals. So, you know, you guys are all in the same boat to get really good grades, do well on midterms and exams, and then ultimately, you know, get a degree after 4 years. So your end goal is pretty much the same, I think. So it's almost like you're on a journey in first year. And obviously, you know, people get weeded out and everything, but at the end,
if you make it, you can solidify some good friendships.
What were some of your ways that you kind of took yourself out of your comfort zone and started to make acquaintances and make new friends?
So I think a little bit about me is I am pretty open to new experiences. I think it's been really in my almost like DNA to keep making friends and always to put myself out there. I know that's not always the case because there has been seasons in my life where I'm really like to myself. But I think when I went into university, I was like, okay, this is a great chance because I guess a little caveat is none of my high school friends actually went to the same university as me. So I was actually starting fresh. No.
You would say you're starting out, aren't you?
Yeah, I am starting out pretty bare in the friend department. So I did almost like everything. I tried to make my roommate my friend. You're wincing. You're literally wincing. We will get to that in another day.
You know, the key word there was tried to get. Tried.
Efforts were made. Were we successful in our mission? No. You're trying to meet as many people as you can. Yeah. And then basically I liked Frosh Week because you got to try. It's almost like speed dating at that point because you're trying to speed date as many. You have so many names in your contact list and you're like, okay.
Yeah, I still remember in Frosh Week where it's like, girl from 6th floor. And you're like, by 4 months in, you're like, I don't remember who this is.
I don't know who this is. They have never texted me. Oh my God, it's like the single text of, do you want to grab lunch? Yes. And then that's it. Like there's literally nothing else. So I guess like, okay, so there's like your roommate, you can be your friend, going to like Frosh events. Like that could be a great way to find friends. One of my closest friends, she led me into her whole friend group. I met her at a glow stick party. This is how open I was. You know how many of those events I went? I went every single night. And you know what? It's because my consistency, I went every single night that I found.
No, we need someone like that. You're so persistent.
I am so persistent. I literally keep trying because I was like, you know what? Not everyone I was going to jive with. I already knew that. If I was consistent enough, if I went out enough times, I could bump into somebody in line that I thought was really cool, or I can go to a glow stick party and hope to God that like I found somebody, and like I did find somebody. I feel like I am talking about like a relationship. I'm like, if I just keep putting myself out there, but it literally is like that.
the more opportunities you open yourself up to, like the more chances you'll get to meet someone that closely meshes with your personality, and ultimately you'll become friends, right? But that's how you just have to put yourself out there in the first place to be able to get these opportunities.
Oh, yes. So let me ask you the question. How did you find friends in your first year?
Yak yak.
Do you remember?
No, I'm totally joking. But that is a story for a different time. Yeah, but how I found friends, like you said, like I also had a roommate, so I also did try to be friends with her. I guess I was just really open to opportunities. Like I know that because we lived in such a big residence, like even just being in that residence, like whether you're going to the washroom, like you'll meet someone new, whether you're like in the common room, you'll meet another person. I think first, like I tried being friends with my roommates. I think she was my first official friend, if you want to call it that. We went to a lot of events together in Frosh Week. So I remember there were two different types of events. So there was either like a general event that like anyone could go to, but then there were also some events that were program specific events. So because of that, I got to meet people not only that were in my program that I got to interact with, I got to interact with people who were, in my year, but I also got to interact with third and fourth year students who were kind of repping commerce at that time. And then I got to talk to them more so, not about just university life, but more so even about like some questions that I had about courses, like midterms, like how the academic side was. I think another avenue that really made me open up was my friend joined a sorority. And so I remember when she was rushing, she would make me come to all of these events. Like, I think I went to about like 4 or 5 different events because she ultimately joined. But because every time you went, they kind of, like all the big sisters kind of interviewed the incoming people.
Right.
And then you get to like interact with them during parties, and they kind of ask you like, oh, why do you want to join the sorority? And every time someone asks me, I'm like, well, I don't want to join. Like, I'm just here to support my friend and like have her meet other people alongside me, where I'm just like trying to meet new people, but I ultimately don't want to join.
And then what did they say?
They were totally fine with it.
Oh, okay.
Surprisingly, I thought, knowing sororities, they'd be like, oh, if your motive here isn't to ultimately join, then, like, why be here? But they're like, oh, I love it that you're here to support your friend and everything. And because of that, I met other people who, like, unfortunately didn't get into the sorority, but ended up becoming friends with them as well. So I just thought that was really interesting. But I never thought about joining a sorority. Like, I just got dragged into it.
I would like to clarify.
Yes, point of clarification. We could put this in the notes. Disclaimer, not affiliated with X sorority.
I wonder if it's a Canadian thing or whatever, but like it's very like you don't want to be part of a sorority, or maybe it's just like our university situation where it's like, nah, I don't think it's for me. I think for US friends, definitely it is a point of a way to actually make friends. And we are actually seen a person like your roommate that actually went through the sorority system and was pretty happy about it too.
Yeah, surprisingly, I thought from sororities, from all I know is like what I've seen from movies and everything, which is more so depicted of the States, I feel like.
Right.
But definitely not that intense and not that cutthroat in North America, I feel like. I guess another way is I went to like a lot, because I'm really into sports. And so in first year, I remember they had a lot of free drop-in events, whether it's like badminton, volleyball, like all types of sports. Like they were really inclusive with that. So they had a lot of opportunities where you could just go in. At first, like I didn't have anyone to go with. So I didn't know anyone who played volleyball or basketball or like badminton, for example. So I would just go and try to meet people there, right? Like at first I'm like, I was scared to walk on the court because I didn't know anyone. Like I'm kind of good at volleyball, right? Because I play competitive. But, I didn't want to come off as too strong either. Like I wanted to like meet people there too. So that was kind of another avenue for me to really branch out and meet people who like shared a similar interest of sports with me.
That's great. That is one of like the best ways. And it's more low stakes at that point because like you're all just trying to have like, it's called intramurals in Canada.
Yeah.
So like, like I always felt, well,
Yes. How did you feel?
I could never do those. They were like, come, it's like so low stakes. And like, whatever. Well, that's the vibe that I got. But honestly, that was not for me. I have never been into it. I have 2 left feet, unfortunately, with these things. And it was not a relaxing activity for me. But I love that other people, it was very relaxing. It seemed like a very, like, you got to have fun and, like, you got to see your friends that you didn't, either in different programs or, like, that were in different courses. And, like, you got to, like, interact with them in a non-competitive way rather than being like, oh, I'm trying to like compete with you in my studies, or not compete, but like we're doing work essentially. But this is a very fun thing. Yeah, for me, definitely no. Definitely did not step foot on the court once. I think clubs were a great way for me to find friends too. I really enjoyed doing case competitions. I don't know if that counts as a club, but it's like almost like an extracurricular, right?
Yeah,
like
club / extracurriculars.
I thought that was the best way because, oh my God, people love first years. They want to take them in and coddle
you.
Yeah, they are so excited that you're there. So I think that's where I found my footing a little bit of like people that wanted me to be there, is because like, yeah, I found like a lot of case competitions and like random things like academic stuff that I was like, okay, you know what? Like this is pretty interesting. Where I did find it didn't really work was like, you know how like there's like Mario Kart games themed?
Yeah.
I found that is like another thing too. I had never like gone to one of those clubs because everyone seemed so intense about it. They were like gaming like no problem, or like when people were like doing arts and crafts, it was a very like introspective thing that they were like, I am painting today. Don't talk to me. It was just
like it was like a group event, but it was it almost felt like individual stations where you're like, no one else can paint with you on the same canvas. Like you each have a different canvas and you're each painting your own thing while trying to connect with that person. It was odd. I definitely understand.
Do you remember we went to the cup painting thing? Here's us trying to make other friends. What is it? In 3rd year, we were like, we're gonna branch out and make new friends. No, we went to this cup painting thing and we got so into it, we stopped talking to each other at that point. I was like,
we didn't even try meeting, like saying hi, like how are you? My name is blah. We were heads down. We're like, okay, I want green, yellow, purple. And then we started painting like our own cup.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I think the key thing is like you have to find what you kind of already are interested in and then just easing your way. And then sometimes it just doesn't work out. Like sometimes it just doesn't, like that painting situation. It was like you're so it's like such a you thing while you're doing it that you can't really branch out. Or sometimes you can branch out, but like I think the thing is like there's so many sub clubs.
We had such a thing called Club Fest where it was a day or two. All the clubs would get together in front of a big field, and then there's like representatives from each clubs talking about like what they are, like what they do, how to sign up, and then you could actually go to each booth. And I remember in first year when I first went, I'm like, I don't remember there being so many club options for us to choose from, right? From what I see on the website, it's just like 100, for example. But when I actually went there and I saw how many like billboards they had up, how many like cardboard, whatever, I'm like, oh wow, like there's a robotics club, there's like a dance club. There's like so many clubs that you wouldn't have thought or you didn't see in high school that suddenly popped up in university.
For sure. Also, I also think this is a great place to meet friends, is that once you join these clubs, and sometimes they have like a really strict, like once you have like the state, they cut it off and like it's very, this is the club and these are the members. Like sometimes they actually have like parties. Sometimes like they do things outside of the club where like like an upper year will be like, come to my house, like we have a small like festive thing doing at their house, like, or if you're legal to drink, like at that point you can have like a beer or two and like you can meet people that way. So I think sometimes really quality clubs can actually become a good structure and framework to finding new friends.
Yeah, And I think another tip, just taking your interest and kind of manifesting that further. If you're interested in something, that like you most likely will find a club for it or will find similar people with similar interests to you. But it's like, I remember at Club Fest, I think the biggest thing for me was just signing up for all different types. So I remember I signed up for like a debate club with one of my friends from first year, where I'm like, I've never debated in high school or middle school. And so she's like, yeah, come, like it'll be fun and everything. So I think just, you know, having an open mind, and even though you're like, you know, it's not really my thing, but you know, it doesn't really hurt. Like there's no cost for you to just put your name down and just to sign up, and even go to the first meeting where they'll definitely tell you like what their club is about. It gives you more chance to like interact with the people who are already in the club and ask them any questions that you have.
Yes. So I think moral of the story is there is so many options out there. You just keep on trying and you keep on putting yourself out there. I guess if you're doing online schooling, how would you find a friend? If you went back in time, say if you had to actually go online now and you're doing your online courses, how would you find a friend?
That's really tough. Like, I definitely feel for all of the students currently who are going through first year without the opportunity to be on campus, but I feel like there's still light shining through the end of the tunnel. I think one ways that kind of comes to mind is we had a platform where you could see a lot of like your classes, so where all of your assignments and everything are posted, but you also can see all the students, I think, who are enrolled in there. And I think each student was allowed to put like a little bio about them as well if they chose to. So I think maybe even one of the ways would be this may be a little stalkerish level, but just to see like who's in your class first. So whether it's like, you know, on the first day, like you see everyone's little name pop up on Zoom, but then you could ultimately go back to like that class list and see like maybe even what that person posted about their bio. So let's say someone posted like, oh, I like dancing and reading and playing with my dogs, right? So you're like, oh, I love all those three things. So then it's almost like you find a common interest and a common ground with that person. And then, you know, it's up to them if they want to reply to you, but you know, it's, you know, I would definitely reach out to them and be like, hey, you know what? I'm in your class right now. Like, I really love your little bio. Like, I have such similar interests as you.
Yeah, like my idea was also a little stalkerish too. Was, yeah, like trying to find people in your class, and like I would hope that there's still clubs going on and that they do still foster some type of online community. I'll go into this one day, but basically I was in a case competition and they're doing their entire case competition online. So basically you can interact with all your group members online. And I think
for sure
there is a little bit of, there's goodness towards being placed in random groups. And then actually turning on your video, walking through your process. And usually sometimes you can figure out like who's a really good student in those video chats, and then also figuring out like maybe the way someone thinks, the way that someone approaches problems and stuff is really interesting to you. And you can actually, now that you have a common ground of saying like we're in the same class, we're in the same yada yada, we can form a friendship that way. And like it's a really small world. You can probably find a friend and then that friend actually knows somebody else that you are friends with. That's what I thought with university. I was like, like, how's that so crazy? Like, I was taking this 4th year class, leadership, and I was in a group with somebody. And then basically my roommate was actually friends with that guy. And I was like, it was so weird because it was like, she was like, I'm just going to go say hi to him. Like, he's just down the street right now. Like, I'm just going to go whatever restaurant to grab lunch with him. And I was like, wait a minute, he's in my class. So I mean, like one day you'll be back in school, or like you never know with like different courses, you know what I mean? Like you're gonna have to take 5 courses, and the beauty of first year so you have to all take the same fucking courses. So
exactly. No choice.
No choice. There's literally no choice. So there's goodness to that, because then you can find out who's the annoying one too, because like they probably keep posting on Facebook of saying how annoying the class was, and then you're like, maybe I'm not that driving with you. But
I also feel like the opposite kind of is true as well. Like you'll start, you know, in your upper years, even in your first year, you'll start seeing some connection. Like, oh, my friend knows this person, but I know this person through like a different means, right? But then I feel like going into 2nd or 3rd year, there's definitely going to be a lot of acquaintances and people that you meet that, you know, you'll definitely have a group project with them, like you'll see them for an X amount of time, but then you probably won't hear from them for like a good year or good 2 years up until like your last year where you're like, I completely forgot about this person. Like I thought they dropped out, right? So you're also definitely going to meet a lot of people like that where, you know, you're really, really close within first year. Like you thought you guys hit it off really well, but you know, something happened and like, you know, you don't really see them that often anymore and then you break ties, but then you're going to hear about them or you're going to see them again in an upper year for sure.
Yes. And don't feel sad about that. Because, like, it's part of, like, the game of meeting so many people. All 400 people cannot be your best friend.
Yes, that's the truth.
You know what I mean? Like, you physically cannot have that many friends. And if you can, message us. Let us know how you do it. Because we're going to pick your brain as to how you maintain 400 relationships at a very personal level. Yeah, you shouldn't be too... I think you should enjoy the moment of, like, if you do hit it off with somebody in that moment, like, if it's actually a genuine connection, like you can keep going on with it, and like if it ends, it's fine, like it's going to be okay.
I guess this is kind of a segue into our next little topic. We kind of talked about putting yourself out there, joining different clubs, and like going to different events to meet people, but then still trying to balance the course load that's forced upon us in the courses that we don't get to choose in first year. So from your perspective, did you think you were able to balance between, you know, academics, friendship, as well as some personal things like, you know, like proper sleep, nutrition, etc.? Even B, like what would be some of your tips for our listeners?
I think it came from a little bit of fear at first of saying like, okay, I literally don't have a physical friend that I knew from high school here with me. So I need to go like almost overexert myself to go find a new friend. And definitely I think just like the nature of like being in first year was just so hard in terms of like discovering this new environment, right? Even online, I'm sure it's the same thing. Like you're discovering this new environment, the new course load, what is expected of you as a student, what you can't just do your, I like to call it your 9 to 5, but it's basically your 9 to 5 of like going to class and then doing your work. Like there's so much more pressure to go and do other things out there. So I think I definitely did not do well in my first semester. Like I definitely had moments of like oh, like it was rough. It was so rough. And I think I did spend a little bit too much time outside and partying and like having fun. And it's usually like by the first or second midterm that you get a bit of like a reality check of like, okay, if I keep going down this path, it is not going to go so hot and it's not going to go well for me. But I think good thing is that maybe we'll talk about this next, is the introspective work of like, who are your friends, right? Like, what are your friends there for? And I think I always made a conscious decision, right? So I was like meeting all these different people and they all had different goals and yada yada. But for some reason, I attracted myself and we defaulted to the same situation. So maybe that speaks a bit more about us, but we defaulted to, you can say, quote unquote, pre-med students that were
pre-med students.
Pre-med. So gross.
For sure.
They're doing the Lord's work right now. Like after I met so many people and I realized, okay, who am I still? Like, what am I trying to do here? I was like, no, I'm still like, as much as like I love partying and stuff, I was like, I'm still a very academic person. Like I still love doing well in school. And even if I didn't do well in like book standard, I was like, I needed to do well in my extracurriculars. Like I wanted to have a balanced way. And that kind of almost like hints at what I did in high school, where I was like, I was very well-rounded in that sense, where I went to school, I did extracurriculars, I found like different ways to do things. And I was like, okay, well, if I look inwards at myself, I would be like, okay, well, what kind of friend do I want to be, right? Do I want to be that friend that literally is like drinking every single day and like where the grades are slipping and like I don't contribute to my friends' lives? Like I don't, like there's nothing nice about me in terms of like conversations, or like I don't have any extra hobbies, you know what I mean? Like I didn't want to be that type of friend. So I was like, okay, well, I want to be a good friend where I study hard, I still make time to party, and then I also do a lot of extracurriculars. And then for some reason there was a whole bunch of pre-med students that actually fit that category. They were just like very, very academic, but they had so much fun at the same time. And then they were well versed in their extracurriculars. And for some reason, they always juggled those three very, not gracefully, but like they did a pretty good job at balancing those things. So I was like, I think I found my people, because that is the trifecta of like things that I want as a university student. And I think I'm going to get the most, like the best outcome from this experience if I had the trifecta, which is school, partying, and extracurriculars. And if I can learn from these people and then maybe get into their circles, because then here's the thing, if you're constantly partying or constantly doing like illegal substances, there's people that actually like end up doing too much during the day. And I like you at night because like I like having fun with you at a party or something, but I don't like you during the day because you actually are not motivating me to do work, right? Like when I saw them, I was like, oh my god, they are like grinders from like 9 to like 4ish, right? Like from what I could see, they're probably spending way more, but they end up like doing work. So you're just like, okay, well, I need to do work. And then when they're like, I'm gonna set this time for party, I'm gonna go party now, because they did the work during the day.
I really like your point where you surrounded yourself in an environment where you were able to succeed, and you surrounded yourself with friends who had like-minded trifecta goals as you. So like extracurriculars, academics, as well as like partying hard after they worked hard. Only after did they work hard, then they could party hard.
Yes.
But I think even with me, it's very, very similar to yours as well, where I also surrounded myself with a lot of nurses, a lot of pre-meds as well. And so I think because of that, when I was living off residence from second to fourth year, like I just felt so motivated after I saw what my housemates had to go through, because they had a heavier course load than I did. A lot of them knew what they wanted to do after school, right? Like they knew after undergrad, that wasn't the end of the chapter. Like they had the intentions of getting really good grades from year 1 to 4 and then going to higher education after that. So their mind was already set. And so because of that, I highly valued what they were doing, and I highly valued how focused and dedicated they were. So not only were they like really, really great at their academics, but they also made sure to like get a lot of different types of extracurriculars as well. But not even just like a general member or like a general volunteer, but they made sure like they were like a position of title as well in those extracurriculars, which I thought was really like motivational and ambitious. And then they also, after a long week's worth of studying, like of like going to club meetings and everything, on Fridays and Saturdays, like they still had the energy and like the drive to go out. Like whether it's like just staying in and like having a couple of drinks when we were of age, or even just like going out to the club even. I highly valued that because they were able to balance all of that so well. So I think in terms of how that kind of manifested to my life was they were basically my role models, right? Like if I saw them studying, in my mind, I'm like, ooh, you know, all of them are studying, like I have no one to talk to now. So then that means I have to go and study. So whatever they did motivated me to do that. And then in all different aspects as well. So when they were like, oh, I went to a club meeting, and then in my head, I'm like, maybe I'm not joining enough clubs. Like I need like a position of title in a club. Like I don't want to be a general member anymore. I don't want to just be a volunteer. Like I'm going to next semester go and apply for this position in this club. Surrounding myself with like-minded individuals with like-minded goals who not only work hard but ultimately play hard as well led me to kind of strive in that environment and led me to succeed ultimately.
So obviously what you just said was very like almost like a character building of that, right? Like you had to realize like what is a friend? What friends do I want in my life? And like the 5 people in your life are going to be an indicator of who you are. Now looking back in your first year, did you ever feel like there's an expectation of you to actually continue either habits or the style or even types of friends that you had in high school? Because high school is kind of like a hodgepodge. There's so many different people, and like when you get into university you can be whoever you want. Like did you felt there's an expectation that you could still continue those friendships, or like did you change so much? You know, because like you're in first year, you're trying to like shake it up a little bit.
That's a really good question. High school was still pretty tough Like you still had to like go through the application process and everything of getting into university. But even in like the last couple of months or even the grade 12 year, like you knew that whatever your friend group was ultimately going to different schools and like going to different programs and just on like a different path where you necessarily weren't going to be a part of their day-to-day lives like you were going to be in high school. So I think looking at it that way, like I cut off like a lot of ties in grade 12 just because when I was in high school, like I was really sports focused, like I was on a lot of sports teams. And because of that, a lot of my friends were also really competitive, whether it's volleyball players, basketball players. So most of them got scholarships to go play varsity level at different universities in Ontario, but I didn't get a chance to. And so because of that, it's almost like I lost that interest because I wasn't able to make it to varsity, like I didn't try out. And so because of that, all of my friends were back for Christmas break, like over the holidays, and they were talking about like their varsity, blah blah blah. And then I just felt at that point like it almost like I wasn't worthy enough of that friendship anymore, just because like they had like such big focus, like they wanted to go pro and everything, and like they had really different goals and motivation than I did. And so because of that, like we still kind of talk now, but ultimately like it just our interest wasn't there. And I feel like in first year I tried getting that friendship back, and then I tried rekindling that friendship even now that I'm out of school, but it's almost like I missed out a good chunk of their life. It almost feels like I've been MIA, and it's a little bit awkward to kind of weasel my way back in after they graduated.
Hey, I'm back.
Yeah.
Hey.
Back and I'm better.
I'm back and better. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no, that is very true. Things change, and like you don't have the same interest anymore, and you don't want to basically immerse yourself in that life if you don't have that life anymore, right? Like if you're not, right, or not even anymore, it's like if you didn't pursue that life, right? I think mine was like pretty similar in terms of interest. I remember my friends, they just liked different things. They had different interests. Like they loved Pretty Little Liars. They loved all these different shows. And like
They loved Riverdale, didn't they?
Oh my goodness. My roommates loved Riverdale. But essentially like, they just had different interests. They went into very different fields. Because I moved so far away, it was like another distance kind of thing where it's like my friends were so far away. I remember really distinctively, like I was trying to commute from one city to their city, which is my old city, and it almost took me 2.5 to 3 hours to do it. I was like, this is not sustainable. And they were like the friend group. You know how like there's like certain friend groups that like you always see like the same 7 people like during Thanksgiving, summer vacation, like it's always those 7 people. So it's almost those things where it's like if you weren't there, like it was really hard to connect. If you're physically not there, you don't have the opportunity to actually, it's kind of to your point, right? Like if you're physically not on a varsity team, like you have less moments to actually connect. And then I guess I was like, and sometimes they got mad at me for that. And I was like, girl, it takes 3 hours to get to you. And it was just really, really weird. And like, a side note, they were kind of catty too. And like, maybe this is like a high school thing. Energies, right? Like, what kind of energy do you give off? And I felt like it was a little too negative for my taste. Maybe they don't even see it. Maybe they think it's positive. But I thought it was a little too negative. And I was like, you know what? I get a chance to restart. You know, new leaf in the... Wait, no, not new leaf. New page.
New leaf in the...
I was like, wait, new leaf on the branch? No.
Like Animal Crossing, New Horizons?
New Horizons. That's it.
Yes. I don't think we should feel shameful that we cut off the ties, or we shouldn't feel like disappointed. Be grateful and be happy for like the times that you did have together, because I'm sure the friends that you had in high school like shaped who you were going into first year, and is like the basis of like what your morals and values are today. So definitely be really grateful for the times that you've had. This is such a weird exercise to do now, but I hear a lot of older individuals say once they're older, like stuff happens, and so you don't really get to connect anymore. And so a lot of that always say, you know, don't be sad about the times that you've lost. Like when you look back to reminisce, like don't be sad, like be happy and grateful that you got to spend it with this person or these group of people. So you could even send them like a message and say, hey, you know, you made such a big impact in my life when I was in high school. Like, I want to thank you for that. Like, you made me the person that I was today. And, you know, even though you guys don't talk anymore or you haven't talked in 4 or 5 years, but it's just the fact that, you know, letting them know that they were such a huge part of your life in high school, which was like very distinctive moment back in that time.
Have you done it?
One day, and I will let you know when I do it.
Okay. Yeah, because that takes putting on your big boy pants. Big girl pants too.
But I have
whatever
reached
gender.
out to like different people who I interacted with in high school, like here and there, where like I wish them like a Merry Christmas or
Yes.
like a Happy New Year. Just because like even though I don't talk to them now, like we still like catch up here and there, and they still made such a big impact on my life in high school that, you know, I'm not ready to give up that friendship yet. They made me happy back then, you know?
That's a great way to think about it, is like, oh, don't like sever your ties.
We talked a lot about, you know, like having similar interests and like having the same, almost similar or same values and morals as you do when you're not choosing your friends, but ultimately having them in your friend group. But what other qualities, in your opinion, would you kind of want or envision as like a friend that's quality?
Them make me laugh. If I were to spend that much time with them, do they add value? Do they make me a better person? They don't like literally put me on a schedule. Being like, have you eaten your veggies? Have you worked out today? Have you done your homework? No, not like that. It's more like, do they have a life? Not where I like envy, but do they have a life where they're doing something that like is bringing themselves up? If I were to have the privilege to be their friend, can I bring myself up too with them? Because sometimes people are doing great, but then like bring you down, and then you're like, cut. Like, this is not great.
Exactly.
Right? So it's more like, do you see them doing well? Or even like, if they're not even doing well, it's like, are they trying? If they are trying and they have good habits and they have, you know what I mean, some of it of like a good trajectory of like where they want to go, then it's like, yeah, I would love to be their friend. And that's a really strong quality, because that's why I have friends from university that aka you, and my roommates that like, and my other roommates that are still friends, because I'm like, I have my pre-med friends, and then I have like my school friends that I have lived with in my 5th year of school, or 5th or 4th year of school. And it's like, okay, those people are actually like really, really nice, and like they are on a good trajectory and they have good habits, and it's like, I would like to be friends with you for the future. And I would like to invest that time too. Okay, I can see this going somewhere, and like I will actually pay like attention to your qualities. Can I still add more to that good quality of theirs?
I think mine is really, really similar to yours. Even our friendship is based on the basis of memes. So even during holidays, like we don't say Merry Christmas. We send each other a video that depicts what Christmas is. And then we know what the message is supposed to be. So that's how we communicate now. But yeah, definitely like someone with the same humor as me. And definitely number 2, someone who has ambitions and values and goals. It doesn't have to be like 10 years from now they know what they want to do, but
if
like,
those people ever come to you, stay away, because that is a little too, that's like a red flag.
That's a scam. Hi, Hun. You want to grow your business with me?
Let's talk about MLMs really quick. Those are not your friends. Those are going to rob you from your life savings.
But they're your friends though. Like some people who you thought weren't susceptible to it, but they are. And then they slide into the DMs. They're like, hey, Hun. Anyways, that's a side note.
That's a side note. Stay away from MLMs. High school people that come back, and then
we will put that in our business category.
MLMs. And also, I had a guy who literally came, really nice guy in high school. Maybe this is the danger zone, what not to deal with when you're in university. But basically, I had this guy, I think more towards the end of the first year or early second year. And he was like, hey, how's it going? You know, like I'm trying to sell business licenses. Do you want to talk? A friend will never sell you things. On the first message, my closing remarks is MLMs is not, and someone that sells you business licenses is not a good friend. Any final remarks? I know. Final remarks other than MLMs for a person that is starting university. Do you have anything else you would like to give as a hot tip? Making friends online. Have you made a friend online before?
I've made like gamer friends online.
Okay, don't go onto your courses and then start yelling at that person. You can find friends online, and it's definitely doable. Do it in a safe manner. You can definitely cultivate, and you can actually, find university friends too. And then if you can't find university friends, it's okay. Let's also reiterate that the pressure of finding your lifelong friends in university was never a goal of mine. You know, like, it was never like, I'm going to come out of here and I'm going to have the best. It so happened. It worked out for me. But I never put that pressure on myself. And then I had more fun with it. Because then I was like, there's no risk. I'm like, if I'm having a good time, I'm having a good time. So I feel like...
because I'm like, I'm not, like, looking for my best friend. I'm looking to do well in my courses and, like, balancing my extracurriculars and, you know, having a good, like, personal life. Because I open myself up to all of these different opportunities, you have a better chance of, like, meeting the one, like your significant other, and even just, like, a really, really good friend, too.
Exactly. So with that, we wish you
a Merry Christmas and a happy...
What I was going to say was, I wish you, oh my goodness, I hope you find a good friend. I hope you find a good friend out there. And I hope your university career starts off with a good trajectory. And I know it's hard online, but hang in there. You're going to find someone, and you can definitely message a couple people. And then if you do find a friend, or if you have another tip, let us know. We would love to hear. And with that, we will see you in the next episode.